Hi everybody, this is Joanne, and today I want to talk a little bit about the Romantic era. Now the Romantic era began at the beginning of the 19th century, and the center of focus shifted from real life to a world of fantasy based on medieval chivalry and fairy tales. The artists of the era, poets such as Byron and Keats, musicians such as Schumann and Chopin, artists such as Delacroix, were all characterized by a sense of the tragic and an intoxication with that feeling that set the overall tone for that era. The model woman of this period was delicate and melancholic. The ideal love object for a man was a submissive woman. Now, medieval plays came into fashion at that time, and the costumes of those plays sort of set the tone, emphasizing the feminine shape in the fashion of the era. So this is where we began to see the wide open décolleté, like on my doll's dress, these big puffy gigot sleeves, which my doll does not have on her dress, the very tiny waist, and the big bell skirt that really just emphasized the figure. So why do I bother to mention all of this? It's because today's book is about the Romantic generation, and specifically some of the science that was going on at the time. The book, which has won many accolades this year since it has come out, is The Age of Wonder, How the Romantic Generation Discovered the Beauty and Terror of Science. And this is by Richard Holmes, who is not a new author. He's an experienced author, writes lovely work, and this is no exception. I absolutely fell madly in love with this book because, of course, my view of science is definitely what has science done to earn my affection and to focus on that. So I definitely enjoyed the way that this book was presented. The theme of this book revolved around three major scientists of this generation, flows seamlessly through many, many scientists. Now we are focusing primarily on England, but some French scientists are included, of course, some German ones, and others throughout Europe at the time were the special focus of this. So it starts off with looking at naturalist Joseph Banks, who sailed to Tahiti and made his discoveries and did a little bit of anthropology and had to learn to adjust back to civilized culture when he returned. But he became quite the advocate for other scientists that came along. This book takes a little foray into understanding hot air balloons, or montgolfiers, and of course that focus shifts then to France and Italy at that time, and the intrepid men who dared to go into the air so high into the atmosphere with this new contraption. Then the focus does turn towards William Herschel, who came originally from Germany and moved up to England, and he of course is the astronomer, famous astronomer, who discovered Uranus, and he also discovered the nebulae for the first time. He also started to make somewhat interesting realizations about deep space and deep time, which then called into question the existence of the universe and of God. So there's a little bit of an atheistic overtone here, and what are the implications of this? And of course we can't talk about William Herschel without talking about his little sister Carolina Herschel, who was really a very wonderful aid for him, but also made many of her own quite amazing discoveries in the world of astronomy. The book does also happen to talk about some expeditions to Africa, particularly those of Mungo Park, who tragically died ultimately in one of these. But then the focus shifts for a good part of the book to chemist Humphrey Davy, who worked with nitrous oxide, and also his design of the safety lamp for miners. Now he made many, many other discoveries. He also took Michael Faraday under his wing, but Michael Faraday would probably be more well characterized as a Victorian scientist rather than a Romantic era scientist. But it was nice to get this introduction to young Michael Faraday. Now, this book is unique in that, so we're seeing this historical overview, what is happening at the time these scientists are making these discoveries, but also how scientific discoveries of the time were influencing famous artists, especially poets and writers, and how even the vitalism debate, how electricity running through an organism And of course this was brought out by a few people, including Volta and a few others. I'm forgetting their names, of course. Writers picked up on this, including Mary Shelley, who wrote her book about Frankenstein's monster. And it was this vitalism debate that really questioned, what is it that makes a human human? And of course we take a look at Coleridge and Byron and Keats, so there are snippets of poetry throughout the entire book. So if you like poetry, you may also find yourself liking science if you happen to read this book. And if you're a scientist, you don't really like poetry, you can find yourself liking poetry. It works both ways. So I think this book has a little something for anyone who is fascinated by this era, and I'm going to highly, highly recommend one of my favorite books of 2009, The Age of Wonder by Richard Holmes. All right, everybody, thanks so much.